it's really our job just to be the best us. And there's nobody like you in the entire world. So the world needs what you have to bring to the table. So don't take yourself for granted. I certainly don't. And the better that we can become at being the best version of ourselves, then the better that the world comes, because that radiates out. And I truly believe that. And now more than ever, it's really important to be at our very best. So happy New Year, 2025. This is going to be about surfing change. So I believe that 2025 is going to bring about a lot of big change. And that is, I mean, it's a fact politically, we're changing things, but I am not getting into any kind of politics. So don't take it that way. Um, but for some people, that is huge change. That's in the United States. There's going to be transfer of government. So, yeah, that's a thing that's happening. But overall, I think there's going to be big change overall technologically. And I think that all of this change is going to kind of carry all of us into a new time of change. And I've gone as far as even naming it. So you've heard of the golden age and the industrial age. I think this is going to be the new age, and that AI is going to come in and things are going to start to change really rapidly. And so, unlike other times where, industrial revolution, that was a lot of building, right? There was a lot of things that had to build up and it took a lot of time and it went over a long period of time. I believe that this new time that's upon us with AI is really going to change things pretty quickly over the next 3 to 5 years. And whether or not you feel like this, AI in particular is going to change your life, the thing about waves, and if we just look at this wave in particular, is that waves take a lot of they take a lot of energy. So the amount of energy it takes in order to lift the water up out of the ground and turn it into a wave, um, sometimes waves are used, if we capture that energy, they can power things, right? So there's a lot of power and energy in a wave. And if you think back about, years and years over your life, and you want to make a change in your life, oftentimes we have to generate that energy for ourselves. But in a time of big change, we really can harness the energy. And sometimes there's just such a lift of change that there's, I feel that there's just an overall level of energy in the air, a transformation, things that are going on that are really propelling forward. And I think this is a time of that kind of change, of big energy change, where things are going to happen and people are going to you do one of two things. If a wave comes, you can capture the energy and you can get right, in the middle of the wave and let it propel you forward. Or you can let the wave land on you, and you can feel crashed by change. Or you can step back and watch what happens and deal with the the aftermath of the wave, right? So this is obviously a strong analogy, but I think it's one appropriate for our time. And so I'd like you to think about today, what direction are you going? How can you capture, if you were just given this big source of energy and you didn't have to like pick yourself up and move yourself someplace because you were going to be swept into an energy, how would you want to utilize that energy? Sometimes people can't get up and change because that initial lift is just so heavy. Um, Sometimes change is put upon us. And I know that is true for many people in the room in really big ways. Um, Sometimes there's a change that we're not looking for, and it just happens to us. And it can feel really overwhelming when that wave happens to us and we feel out of control. And the truth is that we really aren't in control of so many things, right? And so, how can we take some steps to consider what's going to be happening over the new year? And this is probably true for all times. I just feel like it's the energy in the world is one of change right now. And so how do we capture that for the best so that we can move forward in a direction that feels good to us? So the two things I already said, change takes a ton of energy. So how can we harness the energy of change that's already going to happen? And first is introspection. I think this is a time that, and I always encourage this at the beginning of the year. What have you done in the past? What do you want to build on? But this time I'd like to talk about introspection in a different way. I'd like us to take time to consider, what do we really value and what are our values? So, like I said, a time, if you think of just things, and I'm going to talk about, I'm not going to talk about AI and government and change in particular, like get into any depth about it. But when there's a lot of change, and especially if we're going to talk about, AI, it's non-humanity. We also have to think of the opposite of that. Like, what is our humanity about? What do we really value? How can we bring that to the forefront? And the same thing I always talk about our individual strengths and what we as individuals bring to the table, and getting really, really clear on who we are, what's important to us, what we value, and get really clear on that. Because when you're in the midst of a wave, sometimes we lose track of what's important. Sometimes it can feel overwhelming. So just getting super clear on who we are, what is important to us, what are our values, so that when we're moving forward, if we know that we're moving forward in the next best step for us and keeping true to those things, that's going to make us feel more anchored. We'll be anchored in the core of who we are. And if you've been with me for a long time, sometimes I'll talk about what are the 3 words that like who you are at the core. This is along those lines. Who are you as an individual that is unique unto the world? What are non-negotiables for you? What do you bring to the table? But also, what are you not willing to compromise? Where are things that they're so important and valuable to who you are, that they're a part of who you are, that you wouldn't want to go against those things? And the reason I'm bringing up values so much, and I have done so in the past, is that whenever we're looking to set New Year's resolutions or things we want to do, we want to set a plan, often there comes a time of conflict where the thing we want to do comes in conflict with our values. And it's in those moments that people get really stuck. So when people feel stuck, like, I don't really know what to do next, um, or I feel this thing, I want to move forward, but there's some kind of block, like where they can't really move forward, a lot of times that's a block in the values, that they haven't taken some time to figure out, what do I want? How do I want to move forward? And this is also true when you feel like things are happening to you. So when you have very powerful forces, there's a big change in relationships or, job status or health of you or somebody else in your family. These are all things that feel like they're happening to you. And they can be very overwhelming, like a wave. And the way to anchor yourself is to get really clear again on who you are and what those values are and how you want to move forward in the future. But even if you don't have a clear direction of where you're going, knowing who you are and those things are vital. So I invite you to write that down and take a look at that and look at that over the next week and get really clear on, who am I? What are my values? What are my non-negotiables? So no matter what happens, if I'm caught up in this wave of something that feels like it's happening to me or around me, that I'm going to feel solid in who I am. Does that make sense? Is that hitting with everybody? Okay. Thank you for your nodding heads. And then innovation is the next one. There's only four. There's four I's today that I'm going to talk about. And the second one is innovation. And this could mean if you're in business right now and you're not looking at what's coming up in AI, then this is going to be a wave that happens. And I think that businesses that don't keep up with innovation right now are things are going to change around them and they're going to look up and things are just be different. So, but this has also some relevance, even if you're not in business, innovation, learning about what's happening to you. I mean, happening around you. And this is a point, like right after you do that introspection, I think now's a time where we need to look up and look around and see who's around us and be more innovative in how we connect with people. And I think this is going to be a really vital thing right now. More so even in times past. I think we're coming off of, and boy, man, I hate to talk about COVID, it was just us, but it's just a reality of who we are. And um, as people now that we have that experience of being shut down and going to remote work and being clamped in. And a lot of people, especially young adults right now, they grew up in a time of school and stuff where they were not interacting, but all of us went through that with this time where we were really closed in. And I think some of that became habitual. Some of it gave people opportunity to be more introspective, but we have lost practice on how to reach out. And so, how do you get to be more innovative in reaching out to people and bringing that first part that you learned through the introspection out into the world? And that's scary. Innovation's scary. Sometimes new things are scary, but also being innovative in a way that we reach out more to people. Also, does that strike terror in anybody's heart? I say that because, for me, even talking out loud about new ideas to people, it can be scary. And connecting with people when you haven't felt that connection in a while can be scary. So, how can we be innovative and bring more of our humanity to the table? More of who we are? How can we be innovative in that? Because as things go faster and faster, some of you were in my high school class and maybe remember Dr. Shamunga talking about increased entropy. And he said, life is like a boulder on the top of a mountain. And at first, the boulder might just edge over, and then it turns and it turns, and it might lumber at first. But then as life goes on, it increases. And the speed of things increase. And so I find that to be true. And I think that's where we are right now. We're in an age of increased technology, increased change, and the power behind that change, it's just now starting to creak, 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 but it's going to start going faster and faster. And as things start to speed up, and as more technology comes into play, then how can we be innovative in working on the antithesis of that? Because the opposite of that is our humanity. It's how do we stay in touch with who we are as people? And I believe this is also going to be relevant in business. I think that businesses are going to have to understand innovation and how it can be utilized. But then how can you take that extra time and increase the humanity, the connection, the how you're connecting with the customer, how you're connecting with other people. And our ability to connect with other people is going to be more longed for. And that's why I just really think we're in that change time. So how can you be innovative in your own life, even if you're not using technology, but how can you be innovative on connecting with people? How can you reach out more? How can you send out more genuine connection? so that you're relating more to people? How can you share more of that introspection, your humanity, with other people in an innovative way so that it's comfortable for you, it's comfortable for them? How can we increase that? And that brings me to integration. So if we have this one part of us that is introspective, the humanity, our values, who we are at the core, all our skill sets, this uniqueness of who we are, and then we have innovation, technology. How do we bring those two together with more integration? And also integration with technology and humanity. So as you, I'm sure everybody has seen, AI posts that are made. I'm using this in reality, but I'm also using it as an analogy. But there are AI posts now that are videos of people, sounds of people, and you cannot tell where the innovation, the technology starts and the humanity ends, and vice versa. Because the realism of the innovation, it's hard to detect where one ends and the other begins. And so coming to this with real intention and understanding of who we are and our humanity and who we are at the core, and not losing that, and then integrating it with technology and integrating it with other people is going to become vital, more vital. Connection between people is it's vital to survival. And if you think back of the hierarchy of needs, they talk about basic needs, and we think about food, water, and shelter. But a baby will die first because of a lack of connection, because of a lack of love, because of a lack of being held. Like, that connection is so vital to our survival. And so really bringing some more thought into how can we bring more ourselves to the table and not lose ourselves in a time where there's this big wave of change. I told you it was going to be different today. This is not goal setting. This is kind of big picture thinking, but I hope it does give you something to think about. It's been on my mind, and so I thought I will come share it with you. And then implementation. It is not okay to sit on the sidelines any longer. And I don't come at this from a point of judgment, but more from a point of necessity. We had mandatory years off, and now we need to have mandatory years on. And how can we take steps to reach out to the people in our lives that are really important to us and help them anchor in themselves? And something as simple as reaching out to somebody and seeing them. Especially, if you have younger adults in your life, the kids in the college and 20s and all that, in high school, I don't even think that matters. I'm going to go with any age, any person of any age. But having them be seen. What can you do within your life to purposely be more present with people, and then implement? Say something out loud so the person knows that they're being seen. One of the most powerful things you can do for another person is to have them be seen. Let them know that you see that inner core, that you see the value in them, that you see their skills, that you see the importance of their being here, and implementing that on the daily. So how can you do that in your life where you're going to make a real change in the world by just seeing the humanity in another person? I believe that everything I say is true as far as the technology and the change and all this stuff that are outside forces. But all of this is really important work that is within our control. And can you challenge yourself to do something to go through these 4 steps? Introspection, figuring out who you are, your values, your strengths, what you bring to the table, who you are as a unique person. Innovation. How can you find new ways through technology or just thinking, be innovative, something new? How can you do something new to reach out to other people and bring in from other people? Understand what's happening and what different tools maybe you could use in order to connect with other people. Integrate those two things and then start doing something on the daily and making it a daily practice to see one person a day, really see something and acknowledge them with words out loud with your mouth face and say something to them. People can't read your mind, and just bringing something out loud to the table, it can be really powerful. And waves can look differently at different times. Evan took this picture, my son took this picture, from being in the middle of a wave. And so sometimes you feel like you're in the middle of a wave, and this picture is terrifying to some people and awesome to others. Some people want to be in the tube where all that energy is surfing, where they can feel that energy and they feel the water around them. They can be propelled by this massive force, and they like to be right in the center of the wave. Sometimes it feels like the wave's crashing against you, like against the rocks, and just feels like you're between the wave and a hard place. And this powerful force is coming, and it doesn't feel good. But if we can change our perspective and we understand about the power and our positioning, we can always step back. And you can take yourself out of it mentally, physically. You can take yourself out of spots a lot of time, emotionally. And then just, sometimes you need to watch the energy from far apart, from farther away. Sometimes it feels like things are happening too quickly. So do remember that if you're feeling overwhelmed by things that are happening, now in the future, that you can change your perspective from one of feeling internal turmoil to, sorry, internal turmoil, or feeling like you're crashing against the rocks or pulling back. You have control of where your mind is and how you're going to react to the change. And that is our greatest control in all of life, right? We cannot control what happens around us. We cannot control other people. We cannot control what happens in the world, but we can control our reaction to it. And that is our only point of true control. So remember that if you're feeling a wave in a manner that doesn't feel good, change your perspective, reach out for help, get the voice of another person in there so you're not feeling the overwhelm of the wave. And I have a couple of things for you. If you need help and you want to tackle this at a different level, I have a couple of things. I have a little self-assessment test with 30 questions that can help you kind of go through, I'm always talking about health, wealth, growth, relationships. How can you question yourself and kind of see where you are on a scale of 1 to 10? Am I in the weeds or am I thriving tremendously? Like, how do I feel right now? Because sometimes it's hard to just self-guide through all these, questions. And Jen said I should think about things, but I don't really know where to start. A lot of us don't have a lot of practice in that. So I do have a self-assessment that you can take to help give guiding questions. I also made like a PDF journal with prompts to think about. And some of those prompts include, like, what are your greatest accomplishments? Who are the people that you surround yourself with? Where do you want to build going forward? But they're in an order so that you can take one question at a time and kind of go through and think about it and take some time writing. And again, if you've been with me for a while, that the writing, the actual act of writing as opposed to tapping on a keyboard, that kinesthetic connection with the pencil and the paper and the ability to just keep on to let your mind flow is different than entering things on a keyboard or just thinking. I believe that it opens up a channel really to your subconscious mind if you allow yourself to write more. So giving yourself some journal prompts, printing them out on paper, and actually writing through the things can help you process some things that might be in your mind and help give that direction of like, these are the things that are important to me. This is where I want to go. These are my values. These are the people I want to surround myself. These are the changes I want to make, and give you some guidance moving forward. So if you'd like either of those things, text me and just say, I want the self-assessment or the journal, and I'll email it over to you. And hopefully that'll be give you some tools to move forward in the future.